Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Celine Interior Design Podcast. Welcome back. And today I have Michael Amato from Urban Electric. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Noor.
Okay, so Michael, first of all, you walked in and bought me this fabulous brochure, really beautiful. There are actually these embossed birds on this beautiful brochure, really stunning. And there are a range of your different lighting products in situ, which I found really interesting and a really lovely way to display your lights. Tell me, the brochure is called The Current,
Yes.
and I didn't ask you about this before because I wanted you to tell me about it now. So tell me, what does that represent or mean?
Well, I think it's a little double meaning there. It's like there's the current, the electrical current, but also the current happenings and what's currently inspiring us or what's currently in our world that we hope is in your world as well.
Oh, wow.
So,
well,
yeah.
It can mean so many different things.
Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful title. And I love the way you've named it so that it's almost like a book.
Yes. Yeah.
But interestingly, you told me, I had my papers in it earlier and Michael said, no, that's the way we want it to be. I said, oh, it's not perfect. And you told me, no, it's got to be a workbook. That's what it's there for.
Yeah.
So I love that. And if you're unable to go to a showroom, this is a great way to display lights because they are all in situ and it's some beautiful, really beautiful photography. So I've already had my eye on a few. Okay, so let's get right into it.
Okay, let's go.
I am going to ask you, I'm going to grill you about some lighting rules or some rules of thumb that, in your experience you found important. So I'm going to name a couple of name some different lights, and if you tell me your thoughts about positioning and heights and weights or whatever else you feel is relevant. So everyone else, get your notepads out. I've got mine here. Okay, so talk to me about wall lights. Are there any rules and regulations or things that people really need to consider when they're looking at wall lights or looking for wall lights?
I'm probably going to start the wrong way by saying I hate rules.
It's a good way to start.
But the one thing I do like, and rules are always made to be broken in my book, but it is great to have that foundation and know what certain rules are. I think that, again, it all comes down to the client or the designer. It's like, I don't feel like there's a particular or specific rule for the height of a fixture, especially with sconces and ceiling fixtures. So I'm just trying to think of, what, it's all just what appeals to you. And I know that might not be the best answer, but it's just what appeals to you and what your needs are for that specific location or spot.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, I recently went to a lighting showroom, and it's interesting how a lighting designer like yourself really inspires a visual for a designer like me. So at this particular showroom, I went in and saw wall lights that were at an angle and two different lights. And, in my schemes, I'd sort of all put them in line.
Right.
And I just thought, wow, what a great idea and what a great way to hang wall lights. And obviously, there was a great example of somebody putting, the rule out of its place and just saying, let's play with it. And I think that's, you make a good point. It's interesting to be interesting when it comes to your wall lighting. And, if there are no particular rules to follow, then really the world's your oyster and you can do whatever it is you want with them.
Yes.
Okay. What about chandeliers and, larger pieces of lighting? What are kind of main considerations, maybe even from a technical point of view, that you need to really consider?
I mean, one of the things that I always like, and a lot of people go to the rule of height or scale, and I always am all for overscaling a fixture in a room because I just to create presence and just give it some interest. Height above are we ready to go to that? Height above a table, all that sort of thing.
Go for it.
I don't believe in anymore. It's so funny. I'm an old school thought years ago is that your fixture, your chandelier over your dining table had to be 30 inches. I can't think of what, maybe centimeters. That's maybe 70 centimeters or so.
Yeah, maybe.
But everybody wanted to sit at the table and have that thing kind of dangle above them. But it seems that now we just have so many more options with things closer to the ceiling, more space on the table. If you want to do, great arrangements or whatever you want to run down the center of your table, it feels like the focus has gone more from that light and that proportion directly over the table to what's on your table and across from you, not to have anything that, like you said earlier, you like to see it, but you don't want to have it imposing. So like what you've created here is like perfect. You can see it, you're aware of it, but it's not in your face and it's not interrupting.
And I love what you've just said about considering the kind of tablescape you'll have, because actually that's not something I'd ever really considered. Talking maybe to your client or knowing yourself what kind of arrangements you'll have on the table. Are you an arrangement kind of person? Do you like big candelabras? Do you like big vases of flowers? Do you go all out when it comes to tablescapes and flower arrangements and other things that you might have on your table? I think that's something that people don't consider, and I definitely didn't consider when it came to lighting. So very interesting point for me. But also I think something that I have in my recent years found quite important, given that I'm married to a rather taller man than me myself, is considering the heights of the people that you either frequently see or who live in your household. And for me, as quite a small person, only in size, I like the I like a slightly taller or higher setting chandelier, but actually I'm married to a much taller man, and what he might find distracting or annoying, I may not see in the same way. So I think it's important to know who your close friends are, who's coming to dinner every other week, forget the people that come once every 6 months, but who's in the house really, other than the family, more frequently. Who are you entertaining? So for me, that's quite interesting. And what about table lamps? Do you have any thoughts on table lamps?
I mean, I love table lamps, and I just think that you can't have enough of them. So, but the one thing I really like as far as a room goes, like I really love layered lighting.
Yeah.
So a table lamp just really helps add to that layering, and you can we think of a table lamp as something with a shade, but there's so many other varieties and little things you can have that are maybe more sculptural or just a little something to pop along that will add one more layer of light that just creates excitement or interest.
Yeah, just adds to the kind of value of that space.
Yeah.
Do you know, I've only recently been thinking about this, but you can often have, in today's modern world, a room that's opened up. So, a living room that's opening up to a kitchen, that's opening up to a dining space. And, I certainly have that in my own home. And so you may want a number of different pendant lights in the same space.
Right.
Are there things that you need to consider from that point of view? So, obviously you're not necessarily going to have the same chandelier or the same pendant light in 3 different areas. Do you need to consider regulating the heights of all of those pendant lights or chandeliers in that one space? Do you need to consider the sizes of those in particular? Is it interesting to have different, again, we could call it layers of light or different lighting fixtures within that space? Or do you need to be very careful of what your eyes are doing? Because, there must be a lot to focus on.
Right. So the one thing that's going to be contradictory for me to say is that I love layered lighting. Yeah. I think that when I really start to think about what you just said there, you have to think about the space again, who the designer is, who the client is, and how you're going to live in that room. I like a variety of different lights. I don't mind different heights. There's by specific areas or zones. Like if there's an island or something you want, you're lighting a little lower over there. But I don't think you want to jumble, if that makes any sense. I think you want to have
not too much distraction.
Yeah. So I like it all. I like a very kind of neutral kind of plane or playing field. And then you will pick your spots that you really want to step out with and, have some kind of statement piece that will that won't fight the other fixtures around the room.
Yeah, so I think that's important to consider, because I do like having different lights in a space and I'm okay with it. But I think you're absolutely right. I think you just have to be careful that, your focus is where it needs to be.
Right.
And, you know, you have your main statement piece, and there aren't too many statements going on and fighting within that same area.
Right. And a great thing is how you diffuse the light. If you go with shades, or if you have a glass diffuser, or if you have, you know, a bulb that's visible, like that, those are all great things to layer in, and all that just create different
aspects. And dimming, I suppose.
Yeah, dimming's amazing, the best.
I mean, so in fact, that brings me very nicely on to my next point. And I think I must have been watching a podcast or listening to something on YouTube, and there was a conversation about how, you know, back in the olden days, you would have really a dining room, especially lit by candlelight.
Right.
And, you know, it created this incredible ambience. And, you know, still today, you have some people who will switch off their, you know, their main lights and have the lighting fixture because it may be a really beautiful fixture and a statement piece.
Right.
But in fact, they'll illuminate them with candles, or they'll illuminate the room with candles. And I'm just wondering, is there a way to bring back that sort of candle lit feeling and look without, you know, within your existing lighting scheme, without having to, you know, pile a room full of candles, which may or may not be dangerous.
Right. Well, I mean, number one is your how you diffuse. A dimmer is number one, but how you diffuse the light. So inside a number of our fixtures, like I can think of one in particular, the Globus, it's mirrored on the exterior, but there's a gold backing inside of it, so it casts a really beautiful warm light. So there's little nuances and things you can do like that will give you that.
I always find that
softness.
Really interesting that you put a different color inside the shade, and people don't, I think enough about this. But you know, the different light in the shade isn't just to give, you know, a touch of that color, but actually it's to do something very different with that light.
Yes.
And how do you know what that really does unless you've seen, you know, a light work against lots of different colors inside a shade?
In a space, but also we have a testing lab, so we can see these things firsthand. And, you know, when you turn off the lights, you can see what sort of light output you're going to have, but also, you know, is it warm, and, you know, is the gold or whatever we're doing inside there, or is the color casting color, or is it creating warmth or interest? Or
so if you want that warmer look, then you kind of need to, you know, someone will let the company know, and you'll do that testing within.
Yeah, you can
come back and recommend.
You can do warmer colors. A lot of what we do is we have a lot of custom options.
Yeah.
So that's all through paint. So if you choose to, you know, like a great coral or something on the interior of a fixture, could be a great way to bring that kind of candlelit or whatever warmth into the room. So
yeah, a lovely option. Okay, I guess my next question for you is going to be about considerations about reflection of lighting.
Okay.
So, you know, a lot of people walk into a showroom, much like myself, and fall in love with, or look at a brochure and fall in love with different lights. But, you know, do you, how much consideration do you need to take of what's surrounding that particular light? You know, you and I were discussing earlier how the different reflection of a light can, you know, make an object that it sits over or just behind or just in front of really completely different.
Right.
And so, you know, how and when should you consider something like that?
Just trying to think. I mean, because sorry for the silence.
No, I'm just
really thinking.
What I'm thinking
of a
about
number
is
of scenarios in my head. So
yeah, there are so many. I mean, I came across it recently visiting a showroom and seeing a light that sat in front of a wall.
Right.
And the reflection of that light just made such a difference to, I don't know whether it was a wall, paper or paint, but it just it almost created some kind of artwork behind itself. So, you know, from my point of view, when I saw that, I thought, well, that's something I'd really want to know, because then, you know, maybe I wouldn't hang a piece of artwork there. But
and
also,
would let the light act as
and would let the light act
as
the artwork.
So for us, and I can only speak about urban, what we've done in a lot of cases, we'll have like a sconce, it will have like a half shade.
Yes.
Talk about that. So you're blocking light from the front, but you're putting light back on the wall.
Yes.
And a number of things that we've done recently, because wallpapers are so hot right now, or finally back, we'll cast light back on the wall rather than just putting all your light forward. So we have a number of those pieces that we've considered that.
Which is really interesting, because that then really does something very special to the wallpaper.
And it's fun. We also have shade options where you can also do your shade in the same, you can just send the, COM your material.
Oh, wow.
One of my favorites is like, you'll take the wallpaper, do the shade, and just have that piece on top of the wall. But it's a great way to cast light back on the paper.
Yeah, and a great layering as well, a great texture of layering.
But it doesn't compete, it only enhances.
Yeah,
so,
that's lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess another one of my questions is, what is it that a designer, what are the right questions to be asking when you're looking for a light? Because I think we go in and we're all, just completely taken by the aesthetic beauty of lights, because we are creatives like you, because you are also creative designing lighting. And we do get very taken with beauty in our profession. What other considerations do we really need to have in mind when we're looking for lighting?
Well, I think that it's ultimately what you're expecting from the light. Is it going to be a task light? Do you have to chop carrots? Do you have to perform surgery? Like, what are you doing under this light? So that's probably your number one consideration. And also that's your number one consideration, is how you want to live with it, but also how you live. I mean, are you the sort of person that will only use table lights? Are you the sort of person who will only use overhead lights? Are you the sort of person that will, go through all the layers and have the room lit in various steps or various ways?
Well, that's really interesting, because I think people don't. Again, it's probably something that is great to add to the list of the questions to ask your clients, because invariably you'll always have, for example, in a couple, one person who's always warmer, one person who's always cooler, one person who always likes a dimmer room, one person who always likes a brighter room. Or you may be lucky and have a whole family that just likes a dimmer setting. But, that's an important one to ask, because I think you don't really think about lighting from that perspective. You generally, we all know now when we talk about functionality, it's such a funny word, because lights function. You expect them to in this day and age. But I think, it's also about how they function. What are they doing for you as what are they doing for your clients in terms of functionality? Does your client like a dimmer light or a stronger light? And, and at what time of the day, etc. But also, that's an interesting one, because I think people don't necessarily ask about, I'm sure you do as well. I have friends, and I personally have preferences as to, whether I like strong or weak light. I like very bright lights. I don't know about, I don't know what you like.
I'm accused of being too dim. I like it really. I like it really. I like layers, but I like it dimmer. Yeah. Depending on what I'm doing, but I like it.
I like layers of strong light. As long as they're all strong, I'm happy.
See, at my flat, I'm lucky. I do have it came with the place, but there's a cove system that I can really, 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 if I have to see if I'm working, can really pump up the light. But basically, I'm the kind of ruin your, and this is probably the wrong thing to be saying as a lighting designer, I'm probably the ruin your eye sort of person. I like it.
The ambient lighting.
Yeah, I like, dimmer, more ambient lighting,
And Michael, are there any questions that you feel, A, I haven't asked you that are really relevant, or B, that anyone else has asked you that you've found really interesting when it's come to lighting?
The one thing that I would want to stress about what we do is how, and this comes from background as a designer, but fashion and whatever, not just an industrial designer, but I never wanted what was offered to me. I always wanted to change it. So we have created a system where we can offer changes in finishes and materials that help you create and get what you want, that makes it something more of your own.
And more bespoke.
And that may be way off topic for what we're talking about here right now, but it's just something that I've always loved. And I love when somebody comes to us and they want to, take that and just make it white, or just whatever. I think that
change the glass, change the metal
it's
finish.
Just a great way.
Well, no, that's important
to make it your own. So
and not all lighting suppliers offer something like that. So I think knowing that you can have that is quite important.
Yeah.
So let's switch this around, because I know this is what people usually ask at the beginning, but I would love to know how this company came about, because we were talking earlier about how actually it started very small and then grew. And, being a business owner myself, I love hearing the story of how a company has grown and flourished.
So our founder and the owner of the company, he and his wife were redoing a house in Charleston, and they were not happy with the lighting assortments or things that were available to them. So they really started to investigate it and look into it, and started a little lighting shop. And then I was their first customer, and we just really, like, before they opened, I was knocking on the window because I was working on a project. I needed a sconce. They actually had
But this was lighting they made, so they were a couple doing up their home, and they decided to make.
Well, they were looking for lighting, couldn't really find it, then started a little light shop. So they had other brands and lighting in there. But then I came in as a customer, like I said, the first customer. And we just always hit it off. And then they decided wanted to try to manufacture, make their own lighting. We had an old man in town who had a copper lantern company that was, he was retiring. He came to Dave and Jennifer, the owners, and asked if they wanted to buy his company.
Oh, wow.
So from that moment on, we all kind of swarmed to that and figured out how to build lights and make lights, and just took it
and
up. And
here you have it, from 4 to 400.
Yeah. So,
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And how long has the company been going?
So we're in our 18th year.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I think 2023 will be 20 years, which is amazing.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah,
incredible company, and really beautiful, outstanding pieces of lighting. So I look forward to specifying them myself in a project that we were just discussing. And, thank you, because it's been really insightful and exciting to listen to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. I hope I answered your questions correctly. I'm the worst.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.